Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today I am doing a tag video. I was tagged by my friend Andrew over at Andrew's Wizardly Reads. So I will link his video down below. I think you should check it out. Andrew is a really nice guy and we are doing a Dragonlance reread together along with another group of friends this year. And I think that he has some really interesting and insightful things to say about books. So I would really like it if you went and gave his video a watch too. And I'm going to answer the questions from that tag. So this is the Adaptations tag, and it's talking about, it's some questions basically about your favorite book adaptations, whether they be TV shows or movies or anime or whatever the case may be. And there are 9 questions. I have them here on my little cue card today. And I am going to answer them and try to be brief because I was really excited about this tag. I actually don't watch a lot of TV or movies, so surprise, surprise, much like all of the content that I put up on this channel, a lot of these are older adaptations that I still feel like hold up, and I'm sure many people still feel like hold up, but I don't have a lot of time to watch movies or TV with the work and family and amount of reading that I do. So if anybody has suggestions for newer adaptations that they love, that they're looking forward to, then I would really like to hear those as well. However, we will get right into it. And the first question is, what is your favorite book adaptation? So I actually have 2 answers for this, but the second of the 2 works really well for another question. So I'll talk about that one when I get to the end. And I will use the very obvious, but still true answer of The Lord of the Rings. The Lord of the Rings movie adaptations, meaning the original 3 Lord of the Rings movies, I feel like are unparalleled in terms of fantasy adaptations. The amount of care, the amount of love, the amount of hard work that went into making these is, I think it's a little bit hard to comprehend now that we're, 20 years out from when they were first released, because I am glad. I feel like we have entered a new age of cinema, of TV, where fantasy and science fiction, speculative fiction in general, gets the credit that it deserves and is not the frightening undertaking that it was when Peter Jackson was making these Lord of the Rings movies, when he was pouring all of his money, when he was putting his career on the line to make them without knowing if they would turn out. If you just contrast that to what Amazon has been throwing into their Lord of the Rings adaptation with the confidence that it is going to do well, it's just polar opposites, the setup. And I love these adaptations. I think that they're brilliant. I rewatch them all the time, as I'm sure many people do. But something that happened with the Lord of the Rings adaptations that I feel, or I know will never happen for me again, was the air of mystery and the surprise around them being adapted. As I've mentioned in lots of videos, I lived in a very isolated community when I was growing up. The first Lord of the Rings adaptation came out when I was a teenager. And I remember sitting in the theater about a year before the movies were set to come out and hearing the first teaser trailer, which was just a black screen with the drums of Moria in the background. And I was watching a movie with my dad. I don't even remember what we were there at the theater to see, but neither one of us had any clue that this was coming out. We didn't have a computer in 2000. Our community didn't have high-speed internet, so I'm sure we had like some kind of weird dial-up internet that you could go on, like, I don't know, for 10 minutes every evening if you had a computer. There was no cell service. We didn't really watch TV. I had no idea that this was happening, and the only person that I talked to the Lord of the Rings about, my dad, had no idea that it was happening. So the feeling of excitement knowing that this book series that I had loved so much was getting adapted, and finding that out in basically the most cinematic way possible, is just a memory that I treasure. And I like that I didn't know a lot about the process, that I didn't get to watch all of these casting calls and all of the things that we can do now, which I do as well. I find that exciting, but it's just different when you go in blind, when you allow yourself to be surprised. And Lord of the Rings was the biggest, happiest surprise ever for fans of fantasy. So I love it. In terms of quality, they are my favorite, but also in terms of nostalgia and the memories associated, they are also my favorite fantasy adaptation by far. Question number 2 is, what is your least favorite adaptation? I recognize these don't have to be fantasy, but most of them are, because that's what I love. And this is the Eragon adaptation. So they made that one Eragon movie. I know Eragon's a pretty polarizing series in general because a lot of people find it to be very juvenile, very derivative. I really liked them when they came out for what they were. I found them very enjoyable. My younger sisters, and especially my youngest sister, who I spent a lot of time reading to when she was little, because there's a pretty big age gap between the two of us, she loved these books. They were her favorite fantasy books. So they also give me memories of spending time with her and reading to her, which are really nice memories from my teenage years and her early childhood. So I really like the Eragon books for that reason as well. But this adaptation was just dismal in terms of the casting, the acting, the story, the cinema, like everything. Everything that could possibly be bad about this movie is bad. I don't know if there's anybody out there who actually does like this adaptation. If you do, then please let me know, and let me know why. I am open to hearing your reasons, even though I have effectively scrubbed it from my mind. Question number 3. If you could adapt any book, I will give a double answer for this one. So the fondest wish of my heart is to get a good Dark Tower adaptation. Whether that means a multi-series HBO style show, whether that means a series of movies, I'm not sure, but I recognize that this is a very strange series. There are a lot of tonal shifts. There is a lot to work in. It's strange, it's bizarre, it would be difficult to market, and the people who came in for this first season would probably be a different set of people than would enjoy the content from the second season. There's flashbacks and present day stuff. So I understand why this hasn't been done, and I understand that it would be very difficult to do well. So like I said, the innermost, the fondest wish of my heart, the only series that could get adapted that could bring me that same level of excitement that Lord of the Rings did, is the Dark Tower. And I'm not sure that we will ever get that adaptation, but I would love to have it. In terms of a book, and this is probably a little bit of recency bias, but that's okay. A fantasy book that I read recently that I feel would make an excellent adaptation and would actually be pretty easy to adapt would be Chris Wooding's The Ember Blade. This I have a full review for, so if you want to know what it's about, then most definitely check out that review. But the structure of that novel, which works very well as a standalone or could expand into more books and more adaptations, it is a very episodic novel. So there is an overarching plot. There is a story that drives our characters from the beginning to the end. But their journey, much like Bilbo's journey in The Hobbit, let's say, takes place in smaller episodes. So there are smaller, definable chunks that I feel like would make really good breaks for TV episodes. I think that there's a lot of content to cover. The characters are really interesting. There's magic and there's fighting, but it's not anything that would be very difficult to adapt. It wouldn't require huge amounts of CGI. And I really fell in love with these characters, so I would really like to see them come to life on the screen. There's also a lot of really emotional and really poignant moments in The Ember Blade, and there are some scenes that I know would make me cry to see them adapted, and I like that. So I would enjoy that. And I do wish that we could get a really solid TV adaptation for that novel. The next question is an adaptation that was portrayed perfectly. So for me, an adaptation that lived up to my every expectation was the 1978 animated version of Watership Down. If you watched my most recent favorite fantasy standalone novels, Watership Down was on that list. This is a book that I have immense love and immense nostalgia for, and I think that the 1978 animated film captures everything that is wonderful about that book. The film, much like the book, is ostensibly for children. It's an animated movie about bunnies. But if you watch it, it is actually really scary. There's some really tense, really emotional, really frightening parts that are certainly not made for young children. It's actually really funny. I remember reading an article, I think on BBC a couple of years ago, where they played this movie at Easter time as a kids movie and had a bunch of parents write in or call in or email to the BBC to complain because they put this on for their little kids and their kids were essentially scarred by it. Which I could see. There are some really frightening moments. And I think that that's what makes the book work so well, is that you have this setup that seems very childlike, very whimsical, very fairy tale-esque in these rabbits making their way across the world, but there are a lot of deeper, darker themes. And I think that the animated version of this book really portrays that well. I think that it's brilliant. The soundtrack is great. Bright Eyes, the song by Simon and Garfunkel that plays, it encapsulates that existential dread or angst that you feel at the time of the movie in which it's playing, and it's just a brilliant adaptation. I love it. I watch it all the time. My kids are not old enough to watch it yet because they are a bit on the they're easily scared, and I don't want to have to be responsible for those nightmares, but I am looking forward to when they are ready to watch this because it is a movie that I really, really love. The next question is, if you could star in one adaptation, what would it be and who would you play? So I don't know if this means an existing adaptation or if it means a new adaptation, but I can't imagine that I could play a role from one of the adaptations that I love any better than the characters that are in it. So let's talk about a new book that I would like to see adapted and a character that would be really fun to play. And I am going to say The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne, and I would love to play the character of Orca. I am not at all like Orca. I have the upper body strength of a mollusk. I am definitely softened by my lifestyle. I am not the kind of athletic, hardy character that Orca is, but I think it would be really fun to play her. It would be fun to play someone with that much grit and determination, and I think it will be really cool to learn how to sword fight and how to do those things, which presumably they would teach you if you were starring in an adaptation like this. So I think if I were going to be kind of thrust into that role, I would like to play someone that has a certain skill that I would need to develop and learn on set. So I would play Orca from The Shadow of the Gods, which I think would be another really great series to adapt. It's just that the first book is the only one that's out. So I feel like I can't include it on many of these answers because I'm unsure of how the rest of the series is going to go. But John Gwynne's books in general are very cinematic in their execution. They're very plot driven. They have a lot of really cool battle sequences and a lot of powerful character moments that would make for great inspirational speeches and rousing moments in adaptations. So I think any of his books would be brilliant to adapt, but The Shadow of the Gods is my answer for this question. Let's see. Number 6. When it comes to adapting, what do you prefer, TV, miniseries, or film? So the greedy part of my mind wants to say TV miniseries because then you can get multiple episodes, presumably in close succession, either on a weekly basis or if it's like Netflix, just kind of in a dumping, which appeals to the part of me that loves to binge things. But my favorite adaptations of all time are all film adaptations. The Lord of the Rings, Pride and Prejudice, the 2005 version, The Godfather. These are all book to movie adaptations that I love. And while I have really enjoyed some TV series adaptations, like I said, all of the ones that I like the most are film adaptations. And that must speak for something. Like I said, I don't watch a lot of movies or a lot of TV. I don't feel like I have the expertise to talk about shooting and cinematography and the types of things that make movies or TV shows good versus bad. I would not be able to do a channel like this for movies and TV. I do not have that skill set. But just by looking at the things that I love the most in terms of adaptations, they're always movies. So I guess I would have to say I would prefer film adaptations, even though the idea of having TV adaptations with all those episodes and all that content to sift through is also really appealing. Number 7 is, if you could change anything from a recent adaptation, what would it be? This was really hard because, like I said, especially in recent years, like the last couple of years for sure, I have not had that much time to watch a lot of TV or a lot of movies. I need to prioritize the hobbies and interests that I do have because I have a really busy life, and reading always wins out over TV, as does hiking, walking the dog, playing sports. There are lots of things that I prefer to do over watching TV. And when I do tend to watch things, it's booktube. I want to watch my friends' videos and support my friends and help support their channels. So when I do have TV time, it is usually for that. So I don't have a great answer for this. I do think that, so one of the most recent adaptations that I have been watching is Attack on Titan. So I usually am watching one anime with my husband in the background of doing everything else because the episodes are short and I really enjoy anime. And the most recent season of Attack on Titan, the change that I would like to make is that I would have really liked for the entire season to have been released all at once, which I understand is not possible because the manga just ended, and I know why they're taking the split. This is me really grasping at straws for a good answer because I don't have one, but I would have really liked to have been able to finish out the entire series of Attack on Titan. I know Patrick has gone ahead and read the manga, which I don't want to do because I've watched the anime the whole way through. So I don't think I'm going to go over and read the manga, but I really want to know what happens. The first half of this most recent season hurt me so much, and I want to know what happens next. So I'm trying to patiently wait for that, but it's very difficult. The next one, is there a book adaptation better than, is there a movie adaptation better than the book? I wrote that out wrong on my card. And this was when I said it in the very first question that I had 2 favorite adaptations of all time. This is the second one. So the movie adaptation that I think is better than the book it comes from is The Princess Bride. The Princess Bride is my favorite movie of all time. I have watched it more times than I can count. It was actually me and my sisters, it was our Christmas Eve tradition. I think it was because if you have multiple siblings, then you know there's a lot of arguing and fighting. Or maybe for you, there's not. In my family, there was. And one of the only movies that we could all agree on that we all loved equally was The Princess Bride. And because Christmas Eve was like a family time, a time that we all spent together, we used to kind of pile in one bedroom and camp out together. The Princess Bride is the movie that we always watched on Christmas Eve. So for years and years, we watched it on Christmas Eve. I usually still do that as my husband and I are kind of getting last minute things ready on Christmas Eve for when the kids wake up the next day. Then we watch The Princess Bride, and we have continued to do that. But this movie just brings me so much joy. I really like the book too, but I feel like the type of humor that shines through works really well in the movie. I think that it's perfectly cast. I really love everything about it. It makes me laugh consistently. I could put it on any day, any time, and it would make me feel happy. It would make me feel better if I was feeling sad. And I don't know how you wouldn't enjoy this. If you are a fantasy fan, I don't know how you would not enjoy the Princess Bride movie. It is the best. It's just the best. The last question is, what book adaptation do you love that is widely disliked? I thought long and hard on this one too, and I think the answer that I'm going to go with is the Twilight franchise. So I know that these were really popular, but I think they were really popular within a certain subset of the population and probably would be considered widely disliked on BookTube or in the adult fantasy community. However, again, I have a lot of, I feel like it's unironic, nostalgic love for the Twilight series, the book series and the movies. You don't need to tell me that they are an unrealistic, unhealthy depiction of relationships. You don't need to tell me that they're objectively really bad movies. I'm okay with that. I am comfortable with that. I still went to see the first Twilight movie with my friend Leanne, who's probably not watching, but I will say her name anyway. We saw that movie 4 times. We went to the theater 4 times. As poor university students, we decided to spend our money 4 times to see Twilight in theaters. That's how much we wanted to go see it. We quoted that movie, we still quote that movie to each other all the time. So it comes with a lot of positive memories for me. And much like everybody else when quarantine started, I also rewatched all of the Twilight movies for that kind of comfort binge. So I understand that they are detested by a large number of the book reading community, but that's it. You can't help what you like. And I, for better or for worse, really enjoy the Twilight Saga. So that is the last question on that tag. I had a lot of fun doing this. I have a lot of thoughts about books that I would like to see adapted, books that I think would make for great anime or great movies or TV shows. So maybe I will do some more videos kind of centered around this topic if that's something that people like to hear. In the meantime, if you have answers to any of these questions that you would like to share, then please put them below. I never know who has done any of these tags, so I will tag Evie because I feel like she might watch this video and I can tell her in our group chat that I tagged her, and I don't think that she's done it. I don't think that I have seen her do this, but if you are watching and you would like to do it, then please do it because I would love to see or hear your answers, and I think that this is a pretty fun tag to sit down and think about. But anyway, I hope that you enjoyed that kind of rambling nonsense of a video, and I will see you with another one soon. Bye.